West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. The clock is ticking. We got a delay of over a week in the United States Supreme Court making a decision one way or the other on the application for stay or on the underlying merits, the substance of Donald Trump's immunity appeal, and it's delaying the trial of the matter. Why is there a delay? What are they talking about behind closed doors? Which of the many directions in the fork in the road are they taking? I'm going to break it all down right now and then give you my reasoned opinion about which one of the roads they're going to take and what we're going to see in the deliverable, the actual decision making. First, let me tell you how we got here. There's been full briefing already. The D.C. Court of Appeals 3-judge panel led by Judge Pan over 3 weeks ago ruled against Donald Trump that there was absolute presidential immunity to have his indictment dismissed, finding that no one is above the law, and that at the very heart of our separation of powers, there must be a checks and balance where even the President of the United States at the time has to comply with the laws, the criminal laws issued by the Congress, the other third or second branch of our government, and adjudicated by the judicial branch. That was their finding. It's airtight. 60 pages of rock-solid analysis. Donald Trump appealed because he had to. The appellate court said, if you don't appeal by a date certain in the middle of February, we're going to remand this case back to the trial judge, Judge Chutkan, for her to continue and set this case for trial, which would likely be sometime in July, well before the November election. Having that direction, Donald Trump took an application for writ of cert and for stay to the United States Supreme Court. First stop on that train is John Roberts, because Chief Justice Roberts sits over all things D.C. Court of Appeals and D.C. courts as the chief judge. That's his Chief Justice. That's his prerogative. He can do one of two things when he's met with an application like that. He can, on the face of the application, grant it or deny it. He can ask for full briefing. He can continue to stay the case and send it over to the rest of his 8 more of his justices for a full panel decision. It's obvious that he's sending it over to the full panel, so all 9 people on the United States Supreme Court make the decision. He didn't have to technically enter an administrative stay because of the way the D.C. Court of Appeals wrote their opinion. It's automatically stayed unless and until the United States Supreme Court makes their final decision. What is the final decision we're talking about, and why is it taking so long, and why so much silence? Well, there's silence here, but behind the scenes, behind closed doors, this is what I think is happening. There's one of 2 routes they can take. They can either, now that they have the full briefing, they have 2 briefs from Donald Trump, 1 from the Department of Justice in the form of Special Counsel Jack Smith's brief. They've got amicus briefs, which are friends of the court brief on the issues, all pushing to either find absolute immunity or no finding of absolute immunity. Here's a side note. No one in their right mind believes that Donald Trump and his lawyers think they have a winning argument, that there's absolute immunity for anyone who occupies the Oval Office from criminal prosecution once he leaves office. No one believes that. The only reason that they are bringing this case is for delay and delay only. And so the longer this goes, as the week that I started this hot take with has been burnt off, it's 1 week closer to an election and maybe Donald Trump being able to stop the prosecution. But that's not where I think the delay is coming from. I don't think it's coming from just an idle interest of the Supreme Court to give Donald Trump a win by justice denied. I don't think that's what's happening. They can either treat his application as a full-blown appeal on the issue of immunity, and therefore they can come out of this quiet period, this quiescence for a week, and then order full briefing on the substantive issues and set oral argument and have that all happen sometime, let's say, between March and April. Or what we might be watching, and this is where I lean, the struggle we might be watching is that they are going to deny the application, deny the motion to continue to stay the case until maybe the end of the case for an appeal, but let the case go back to the trial judge for trial setting. But there are a number of Republican right-wing MAGA, so to speak, Supreme Court justices, and I can name at least 2 right here, that want to be heard and write a substantive dissent, and that's what they're doing right now. They're writing their substantive dissent. I think it's more likely that Alito and Thomas are writing, maybe joined by somebody else like Gorsuch, is writing their substantive writing. All right? And what we would see then is a two-line, not pages, 2-line denial of the request to stay, setting the case back to Judge Chutkan on remand to let her set the case for trial like next week. But it'll come along with these 10 and 15-page dissents, maybe one dissent joined by a couple of Supreme Court justices like Alito and Thomas, or the other. If I had to guess who's writing it, it's probably Alito, joined by Thomas, maybe by Gorsuch. I think that's about it. So I think there is that afoot, and what will then spit out the other side, maybe later this week, but likely next week, is going to be, and this is my prediction, and I could be wrong, and I'll come back on here and tell you I was, but this is what I think is going on. They're going to deny the stay that Donald Trump requested. They're going to, by doing so, basically affirm the ruling of the D.C. Court of Appeals against Donald Trump finding no absolute immunity, because they don't want to make that law that gives license to the next occupant of the Oval Office, God forbid Donald Trump or anybody else who thinks they can get away with it. They get a get out of jail free card because they happen to be the president at the time they commit a crime. They don't want to set that precedent. But what we're waiting on, again, is this is my computer word processing symbolism. We're waiting for the writing of the dissents, not of the majority opinion. The majority opinion will be a 2-line rejection. That, I think, is a 60 to 70% chance of what's going on. The 30 or 40% chance is they are still struggling in caucus and in meetings and in letter writing and in memo writing back and forth that they're circulating, and a draft competing opinions are circulating, and they're still trying to figure out whether they want to grant the stay or not, or whether they want to have full briefing from the parties on the issue. I just don't think that's what's happening. It could, and if so, we'll see one of 2 things. An order granting the stay, which indicates that there's enough votes to find eventually absolute immunity, and therefore that case is off the docket against Donald Trump, the DC election interference case, forevermore, at least through the time of the election. That's why I don't think they're doing that. Or they come out of this, this cauldron of a week, this pressurized, this pressurized crucible for a week of yelling and screaming in, polite ways that the Supreme Court operates, and they say we need more briefing. We need more briefing. on the substantive issue of the appeal. Donald Trump, you get 2 more briefs. 1 more brief for the special counsel, and we'll see all you guys at the end of April for oral argument. I just don't get the sense that's what's happening. So I'm trying to explain to you what I think the delay is. It may not be a bad thing. We'll know, and I'll come back and tell you whether I was right or wrong. If we see a short denial of the motion to stay, that means it gets sent right back to Judge Chutkin for trial. And if Donald Trump has anything that he wants to raise after he's convicted or not, he can do that on an appeal and raise absolute immunity. But they're not going to handle it now. But what we'll see is two fiery dissents by Alito and Thomas, or one that they're working on right now feverishly, that will blast the rest of the United States Supreme Court and say this is an absolute outrage, and we've never in the history of 270 years have ever found that somebody can be convicted or indicted for actions taken that were maybe official or borderline official as President of the United States. Is terrible for our Constitution, and the world is falling, sky is falling, blah blah blah. That's what I think they're working on.
It is Friday, the 23rd of February of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Well, how are you today? Come this Monday, just to give you a little bit of a rundown on the personal, we take our little English Yorkie, Precious, into the vat early, and we'll be dropping her off for an all-day procedure, meaning all day meaning that she'll be put under for the procedure, and they give her a bit of time to be able to come out of it, and that's a good thing. And what is that procedure? Well, she's going to have her teeth worked on. And then, after she recovers from that, we'll be taking care of her hindquarters, kneecaps in particular. Apparently with small dogs, and Yorkies in particular, they have an issue with their kneecaps coming out of alignment. And I know what that feels like. It's not fun. And to have them put back is not fun either. So, and I've had that done. Whew. But regardless, she's doing actually pretty good. They gave her some pain medicine that she now realizes that when I pull out the little syringe to give it to her in her mouth, she now recognizes that as like, oh no, I gotta run from that. But we give it to her, in the evening or so, and kind of knocks her on her butt. I wouldn't say she gets pinned to the couch, but she stays on the couch. She gets up there and then sleeps there all night. And then Dr. Dickey, our vet, said, now no jumping up and down and no running, with the little dog. And now she wants to run. Yee. So she's not feeling the pain from that, but trying to keep her not, to not bounce around and run. So she's pretty good about climbing the little stairs to, the various beds and the sofa and whatnot. So she doesn't have to jump up and down for that. But the running, she wants to go outside, and we have as you know, if you've been with us for a while, we have a park-like setting here at the corner of 3rd and Marie. Ooh, should I have said that? Anyway, quite a bit of property and that she can run around in, which will be good when she's healed enough to be able to do so with impunity and keep her weight down. So at least I know that she might want to, burn some calories. All right. Well, that was rather, I don't know, a homey homily. Anyway, here we are on Friday, headed into the weekend, and will we still have a democracy much longer? I don't know. A neighbor lady who I think she's fully retired from the military now. It just makes me wonder what kind of people were glutton in the military. They've been there for quite a while. And what is it about the military that kind of changes people into, or maybe they didn't change. Maybe they brought their whatever it was with them. Regardless, she put up a big ass old Trump banner on her garage. Trump 24. We support the police. Yeah, that's some gaslighting. January 6th, if I remember correctly, there was nothing but cops getting their ass kicked by this mob. Give me a break. You know, I got to tell you, these people, and when I say these people, I mean these people. I'm setting them separate from the rest of us because they deserve it, okay? Not because of a prejudice. No, that's prejudging. I am post-judging. A little bit of a difference. These people actually believe that their guy won. That all of this that has transpired since has been one giant conspiracy against their guy. Their guy, the victim king. Oh my God. Yeah, seems like a snake. Anyway, they believe that Joe Biden, with his decades of public service, the tragedy of his life, that he's some demented fool who at best is being manipulated by forces beyond our control. They truly believe this. And anybody who attempts to pierce their bubble, yeah, they will lash out. So one has to tread a bit carefully. Now, is that stochastic terrorism or is that actual terrorism? Because I got to say, maybe I've been, I wouldn't say naive, but maybe I've been a little too giving people a benefit of the doubt. Because upon closer inspection, a lot of the, well, what we would normally call like bikers, the guys that look like bikers, upon closer inspection, a lot of them have some KKK decals. What's that all about? Oh, I know exactly what that is about. I heard from some here who are MAGA, who said that they were Democrats when they were younger, but in the 80s they became aware of the social engineering the liberals were doing, and they had to go with Reagan. Social engineering? What exactly are you talking about in terms of social engineering? What I remember is a bunch of right-wing KKK types, neo-Nazi types, the order, etc., 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 killing people in the streets. KKK rising up once again on their night rides, killing black guys, 19-year-olds, string them up hang them from a tree for everyone to see. We're back. Social engineering? Yeah, I kind of remember some social engineering. And it was because of Ronald Reagan going to Pennsylvania, Mississippi, where the Freedom Riders, Schwerner, Goodman, et al., were murdered by the KKK. Ronald Reagan launched his campaign from there. It was sort of the equivalent of the escalator ride. We're coming after every immigrant. They're murderers. They're rapists. They're drug dealers. Well, this guy was running a pill mill that he took to the White House and became a White House pill mill. Everything is projection with them. Murderers, rapists, drug dealers. When they show you who and what they are, believe them. Okay? So, Yeah, I guess I got the KKK and they're all on their Harleys. No one rides a Moto Guzzi. It's Harleys. You're not going to see an English bike around here at all. What kind of America is this? Jesus Christ. I mean, a good Norton. I want a Norton. Where's the Nortons? Harleys. No Moto Guzzis. No police specials up here. Yeah. Yeah, I was told unequivocally that I cannot complain about the illegal aerial fireworks shot off in the neighborhood because we need more of them. By the same people who say, we're law and order, we support the police. Well, that's a goddamn piss poor way of saying you support the police when you're breaking the law. Unless the police that they're thinking about are their brethren who have infiltrated and are decaying it from within. Which is kind of a slow process. It has to go on for a while. So it's been going on for a while, as we all know. All right. It's Friday. I could go on and on and on. And should I? Let's cap it and get to the curated part of the show because we do that so we can put a cap on it. We think ahead. All righty, what do we have in store for you? Well, at the top, that was the Midas touch. I keep wanting to say Medias and all this other stuff. It's Midas. Exactly like I thought it would be in the very beginning, and I was rethinking it. Anyway, first impressions sometimes are correct. The Midas touch, Potok there, breaking it down for us, that the Supreme Court's key decision on Trump's immunity challenge, which he has just given to Cannon. What is she going to do with it? You know exactly what she's going to do with it. Oh, yeah, you have a presidential immunity. You're God. Well, that case, the decision will drop as soon as Alito and Thomas finish their dissent. Taking them a while. On the rest of the menu, Washington state lawmakers advanced a bill making it a felony to threaten election workers. Wait till that goes to the Supreme Court. They're going to say, oh, no, there's a constitutional right to threaten election workers if it's coming from the Nazis. Oh, speaking of which, Discount Gerbils Stephen Miller lost big in a racially charged lawsuit to restrict voting in Arizona. And a Texas judge ruled a Texas school can legally discriminate against a black Texas teen for not styling his hair to his white Texas superior's liking. They can do that there, apparently. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the UN Food and Agricultural Organization set a target of 35% growth in aquaculture production to fight world hunger by 2030. And a private lander made the first U.S. touchdown on the moon in more than 50 years. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so and everything else that she does. Thank you, Kelly. If you would then look across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, if you gander off to the left, gander, You will then notice the link to our Patreon page, and if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us put a dent in the amount of money we got to pay for the bills that are accrued here at Netroots Radio to keep this powerhouse of resistance resisting. If you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance, do that once a month, and it really does help us pay those bills because other like-minded folk are doing the same and have done so for quite some time. So thank you all for doing that, and thank you to those of you who are considering possibly doing so in the near future. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, etc., even Facebook, you can do so at Netroots Radio. In most places, otherwise, it's just Netroots Radio. And we all take care of Facebook, as I've been saying here for a little bit of time, because we do. We all do take care of it. But Tom takes care of all the rest of the social media, so thank you, Tom. And everything else that you do as well. Thank you. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, wherever, Instagram, Tumblr, even on Tumblr, do so at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diaries on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. And if you follow my social media feed, those are actually quick links to get to those diaries on Daily Co's, which sometimes is a little bit difficult to navigate, just so you know. But then you can have quick access, to the actual articles written by the actual reporters, because that's important, you know. And therefore, follow me. All right. You can also follow the show, such as it is on Twitter, at Cookbook West. And please, most importantly, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, even Audible. We're on Audible now. And really, wherever podcasts can be found. And they can be found most everywhere. Just try. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on this fine Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, right before a primary weekend. Oh my. Well, this is by Hallie Golden, who writes for the Associated Press, and I got this by way of the Oregon Public Broadcasting website, because hard as I tried, I could not locate it on the AP site. So here we are. The Washington State Senate voted overwhelmingly yesterday, Thursday, to make harassing election workers a felony 3 months after 4 county election offices received envelopes containing suspicious powder, including 3 testing positive for fentanyl. And they had to be evacuated, those offices. Now, I just want to tell you, everybody says, oh, the Mexicans are bringing fentanyl across the border. Around here, it's not Nazi bikers making fentanyl. I'm just saying. You know, the ones that have the little KKK patches. Eek. At least I think that's what they are. Well, Democratic Senator Menka Doringa said that this cannot be something we take as normal, and said that during a vote, or during the vote. We have to make sure that our election workers are protected, that people who participate and engage in our democracy have faith that the system works well and that we don't have bad actors that can actually disrupt vote counts. Who has been doing that? Antifa? Yeah, I bet. But there's going to be a MAGA judge who will say, well, we can't keep election workers from being harassed because Antifa's doing it too. And you're giving them a pass. Show us one case where Antifa tried to. You can't show us, so therefore we're not being fair. My God. The bill is among a wave of legislation across the U.S. seeking to boost protections for these workers in the lead up to the 2024 election amid an increasing number of threats some attribute to false claims by Trump and his allies that the 2020 election was stolen. 23 states are considering bills addressing protections, according to the nonprofit advocacy group Public Citizen. In Maryland, for example, lawmakers are considering legislation to enable authorities to prosecute people who threaten or harm election officials or their immediate family members. The bill in Washington would increase the possible penalty for harassing an election worker in person or by mail from up to 1 year in jail to up to 5 years in prison. It would also give targeted workers the opportunity to join a program run by the Secretary of State's office designed to keep their addresses confidential. The measure has already been approved by the House, but will need to go back to that body for verification before heading to Governor Jay Inslee's desk. Mike Falk, spokesperson for the Democratic governor, said in an email they have not reviewed the bill in detail, but that Inslee is, quote, generally supportive of efforts to protect our democratic process and the people who carry it out, end quote. Some Republican lawmakers pushed for the bill to include protections for election observers. You know, the ones trained and sent there to harass, intimidate, and threaten election workers. Matthew Chapman of Raw Story brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Former Trump associate Stephen Miller, Discount Goebbels, sometimes we call him Santa Monica Goebbels, just lost big in a case where he sought to restrict voting in Arizona. In Strong Communities of Arizona v. Maricopa County, filed earlier this month, Miller argued that the largest county in Arizona, home to Phoenix, illegally placed too many voting centers around Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, thereby putting white and indigenous voters in other parts of the county at a disadvantage for voting access. According to Democracy Docket, the voting rights group headed by attorney Mark Elias, Miller also claimed Maricopa County officials violated numerous state laws and regulations concerning chain of custody procedures, ballot reconciliation, signature verification, ballot curing, voter registration cancellations, and drop boxes. Oh my! Well, yesterday, Thursday, Elias reported that 16 days after it filed the case and after we intervened to defend the law, Stephen Miller's right-wing legal group dismisses its lawsuit challenging Maricopa County, Arizona voting rules. Case over, wrote Democracy reporter Yvonne Wingett-Sanchez. Miller was the brainchild behind many of Trump's harshest policies targeting immigrants when he was in office. Since the end of the Trump administration, his group, America First Legal, has been responsible for a number of cases that seek to dismantle equity programs around the country. Some legal experts have called the group's litigation frivolous and meritless and urged the courts to sanction them. In one of their most prominent cases, America First Legal managed to block a program to provide aid to historically disadvantaged black farmers, claiming that it was discriminatory against white people. Miller, who was Trump's former immigration policy designer, was recently being hammered online for having a cow over a supposed crimes he believes DHS Secretary Mayorkas and everyone in the Biden administration committed. Yeah, I think somebody needs to be committed. This final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A black high school student's months-long punishment by his Texas school district for refusing to change his hairstyle does not violate a new state law that prohibits race-based hair discrimination, a judge ruled yesterday, Thursday. Daryl George, age 18, has not been in his regular Houston area high school classes since August 31st because the district, Barbers Hill, says the length of his hair violates its dress code. The guy has tight braids, kind of like tied tight to his head. I don't know what they're talking about. The district filed a lawsuit arguing George's long hair, which he wears in tied and twisted locks on top of his head, violates its policy because it would fall below his shirt collar, eyebrows, or earlobes when let down. The district has said other students with locks comply with the length policy. After about 3 hours of testimony, State District Judge Chap Kane III ruled in favor of the school district, saying its policy is not discriminatory because the Crown Act does not say that exemptions for long hair can be made for hairstyles that are protected by the law, including locks. And he said courts must not attempt to rewrite legislation. The Crown Act, which took effect in September, prohibits race-based hair discrimination and bars employers and schools from penalizing people because of hair texture or protective hairstyles, including afros, braids, locks, twists, or Bantu knots. The judge encouraged George to ask the state legislature or the school board to address the issue. George's family has also filed a formal complaint with the Texas Education Agency and a federal civil rights lawsuit against Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton, along with the school district, alleging they failed to enforce the Crown Act. The lawsuit is before a federal judge in Galveston. Well, let's hope justice prevails. All right, now let us go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Sewing Will Never Be the Same. In her directorial debut, Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin, has come up with a cute genre bender called Lisa Frankenstein. Our protagonist here is the weird girl at school, Lisa Swallows, a survivor of abuse and trauma who spends way too much time at a local bachelor's cemetery. I didn't really know there were such things, but as she's leaving the place one day, a lightning strike resurrects one of the residents, and havoc ensues within Lisa's family and high school cohort. The reanimated being, known throughout as just the Creature, responds well to a regimen of sewn-on body parts acquired under some really interesting circumstances, as well as time in a malfunctioning tanning bed. Yes, it's the 1980s. The best parts of this one are the set design and the period soundtrack. It's obvious that Isabel Summers from Florence and the Machine, credited with the music here, knows the era well enough to place the coolest indie rock of the period and the most egregious corporate schlock rock for maximum and often hilarious effect. And Diablo Cody's script does a good job of keeping the absurdity of the whole thing moving along. The theater I watched the film in preceded it with a mini-doc about the Frankenstein franchise. Obviously, this one largely owes itself to that, especially turning the tables on Bride of Frankenstein. But it's also a horror spoof, a survivor story, and a campy high school comedy, and some critics like to hone in on movies like this as not really succeeding in any one genre. But you're probably not a critic, and the huge difference between critics and audience numbers on a certain review aggregator predict that you'll probably love Lisa Frankenstein. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For older adults, optimal aging includes preventing injuries, effectively managing existing chronic conditions, and maintaining physical and cognitive health and social engagement. I'm Dr. Linda Anderson, Director of CDC's Healthy Aging Program. The promotion of cognitive health is a critical component of overall good health. Cognitive health among older adults is not just the absence of disease. It's the development and preservation of cognitive abilities such as memory, language, judgment, and remembered skills such as driving. Cognitive abilities enable individuals to maintain social connectedness, an ongoing sense of purpose, and the ability to function independently. In 2013, CDC and the Alzheimer's Association released the second in a series of roadmaps. This roadmap, the Public Health Roadmap for State and National Partnerships 2013 to 2018, was developed as part of CDC's Healthy Brain Initiative. It reflects the insights and expertise of a wide range of stakeholders at the national, state, and community levels. The roadmap shares the Healthy Brain Initiative's vision of cognitive health as a vital component of overall health and well-being, an area ripe for public health efforts. Specific actions are addressed in 4 traditional domains of public health. The first is monitor and evaluate. Tracking the health of the nation is a fundamental public health function. Actions in this area include assessments related to cognitive health that help quantify and qualify the public health impact and inform public health policies and strategies. The second domain is educate and empower the nation, which focuses on actions that raise public awareness and improve access to information and resources. The third domain, develop policy and mobilize partnerships, includes actions aimed at ensuring that cognitive health is integrated into a broad spectrum of public health work. The fourth area, assure a competent workforce, focuses on preparing public health professionals to translate current and emerging findings on cognitive health into effective public health practice. This roadmap provides a solid foundation for the public health community to anticipate and respond as new scientific discoveries related to cognitive health emerge. Public health agencies and partners are encouraged to work together on actions that best fit their mission, needs, interests, and capabilities. For more information, please visit cdc.gov/aging/healthybrain.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and test us, if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music.
This is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Let's reflect for a minute on the recent remarks of Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan.
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Justice Kagan, during a public conversation at the Library of Congress, avoided saying anything directly relevant to any case before the court. But she did articulate decision-making principles and powerfully shared her perspective on the court discarding precedent. Justice Kagan said, "When the law flip-flops after change in personnel on the court, it doesn't look like law anymore. It looks like a form of politics." She continued, "And I think that's especially important for this Supreme Court at this time. Law should not look like a form of politics, where just because the composition of the court changes, a whole batch of legal rules change with it." Justice Kagan added, "When what was once a right is no longer a right because the court is different, I think that's very damaging to the court, very damaging to society." Justice Kagan did not mention any one of the dozens of examples where this Supreme Court has reversed or dramatically changed long-standing law, but, as Adam Liptak wrote in the New York Times, it was a good bet that the court's 2022 decision overruling Roe v. Wade was among one of the ones on her mind. And let us add, ours too.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union, because freedom can't defend itself.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. We're in Arizona today, where a new and normally mundane election procedure manual for election officials has attracted not one, not two, but 3 GOP lawsuits. Arizona's Secretary of State issued the updated manual in January after review by the state's governor and attorney general and a 15-day public comment period. January 31st, House and Senate GOP leaders challenged 6 new provisions, one of which tells counties they must certify elections by the statewide deadline or risk county results not being counted by the state. In 2022, conspiracy theory-driven Cochise County commissioners tried to block certification. Another suit by the national and state Republican committees argues the 15-day public comment period should have been 30 days and takes issue with 7 provisions, including allowing early voting mail ballots to be sent out of state and allowing federal-only voters with no citizenship papers to vote in presidential elections. The Arizona GOP has used proof of citizenship as a voter suppression tactic aimed at Native American voters, some of whom do not have birth certificates. A suit filed February 13th by the Arizona Free Enterprise Club contends new rules protecting voters from threats and intimidation violate the free speech rights of poll watchers. The rules come after masked and armed vigilantes were stationed at ballot drop boxes in 2022. We have more details at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1969. That was the day black food workers went on strike at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Their strike intersected many points central to the social upheaval of the period, including the rights of public sector workers. Besides extremely low wages, workers complained of racial abuse and discrimination on the job. When the administration ignored their demands, the cafeteria workers sat down at the tables and refused to return to the kitchens. Black women workers like Mary Smith and Elizabeth Brooks organized protests and rallies to build public support on and off of campus. As the strike wore on, many students rallied to their defense. The Black Student Movement was the first campus group to support the cafeteria workers. Noting the lag of desegregation on Southern campuses and in the South generally, Black students added their own demands to those of the workers. They included the expansion of Black student aid programs and Black study programs. Clashes escalated between students at Lenoir Hall a few weeks later when opposing white students attacked integrated groups of students sympathetic to the strike, forcing the closure of the cafeteria hall. Governor Robert Scott ordered the National Guard on standby. Finally, the workers formed a union and won many of their demands. This benefited 5,000 other state employees as well. But a month later, the University of North Carolina administration betrayed them by contracting out the food service. Many were laid off or fired for union activities. By the end of the year, the now AFSCME organized workforce struck again over many of the same issues. When renewed student strike support was threatened, management quickly caved, and the strike ended in victory. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 38 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the low to mid-60s. Partly cloudy skies later on today. We have mist and fog currently at the moment. Winds will be light and variable. Partly cloudy skies overnight with lows in the mid-30s. Winds light and variable. And then mainly sunny skies tomorrow with highs in the mid-60s. Winds light and variable. And then on Sunday it looks like the beginning of cold rain throughout the week. Pollen is rated as none here in our little village of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 28 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is low at level 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.33 inches. Visibility is at less than a mile, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 45 degrees with rain showers. Paris is 46 and mostly cloudy with a high wind advisory. Rome is 60 degrees with rain and wind with a high wind advisory. Bagram is 30 degrees and fair. Kyiv is 44 degrees with light rain. Hong Kong is 65 with light rain. Tokyo is 38 and fair. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 62 degrees and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 and partly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 45 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 45 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization yesterday, Thursday, set a target to further increase aquaculture production to meet a rising demand for seafood and to fight global hunger and undernourishment. The FAO hopes to see 35% growth in the sector by 2030, according to a report adopted at the end of a 3-day Asia and Pacific regional conference in Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo. Officials said the world's aquaculture production has increased 54% since 2011 and remains one of the fastest growing agricultural producing sectors. The new target is part of the FAO's Blue Transformation Roadmap, which seeks to transform the world's aquatic food systems by the start of the next decade. It is projected that nearly 600 million people in the world will be chronically undernourished by 2030, but progress is expected in Asia and the Pacific, where the number of undernourished is projected to fall from the current 371 million to 202 million people by 2030. Angela Lentisco, the FAO's Fisheries and Aquatic Officer, said the fisheries and aquaculture sectors play a very important role in addressing food insecurity in the region and added that the FAO is helping member countries to develop this sector. In Sri Lanka, the FAO has helped with several projects in a bid to improve Sri Lanka's fishing industry, which plays a key role in the island nation's economy and provides livelihoods for more than 2.5 million people.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A private lander yesterday, Thursday, made the first U.S. touchdown on the moon in more than 50 years, but managed just a weak signal back until flight controllers scrambled to get better contact. Despite the spotty communication, Intuitive Machines, the company that built and managed the craft, confirmed that it had landed upright, but it did not provide additional details, including whether the lander had reached its intended destination near the moon's south pole. The company ended its live webcast soon after identifying a lone weak signal from the lander. What we can confirm without a doubt is our equipment is on the surface of the moon, Mission Director Tim Crane reported as tension built in the company's Houston Control Center. Added Intuitive Machines CEO Steve Altimus, I know this was a nail-biter, but we are on the surface, and we are transmitting. Welcome to the moon. data was finally starting to stream in, according to a company announcement 2 hours after the touchdown. The landing put the U.S. back on the surface for the first time since NASA's famed Apollo moonwalkers. Intuitive Machines also became the first private business to pull off a lunar landing, a feat achieved by only 5 countries. Another U.S. company, Astrobotic Technology, gave it a shot last month, but never made it to the moon, and the lander crashed back to Earth. Both companies are part of a NASA-supported program to kickstart the lunar economy. Astrobotic was among the first to relay congratulations, an incredible achievement. We can't wait to join you on the lunar surface in the near future, the company said. The final few hours before touchdown were loaded with extra stress when the lander's laser navigation system failed. The company's flight control team had to press an experimental NASA laser system into action, with the lander taking an extra lap around the moon to allow time for the last-minute switch. When this change finally in place, Odysseus finally descended from a moon-skimming orbit and guided itself toward the surface, aiming for a relatively flat spot among all the cliffs and craters near the South Pole. Well, we'll see how that story develops, and it's actually quite exciting. And that also brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Monday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.